So now we're going to have a few questions with our panel. So the first thing I want to ask is, I'd like you to talk about your family business now and what it looks like in the future. Can you hear me? Would you like to start?
Sure, I'll start. So my family business today, I mentioned earlier, we just took over the operational management from my parents' generation in January. So what it looks like now is it's me and two of my cousins who are basically running the day-to-day operations. My parents' generation are now moved into governance with 4 from my generation also in governance on the board. And then my parents' generation is also advising us and still in the office every day. So we're really treating this as a baton pass, and we might have to yank the baton out of some of the people, but it's totally normal. This has been their life for 55 years, something they've built. It's their way is the right way of doing things, and so we're working through that. I mean, we've been working on succession for many years. Joanne, who's here, helped us and started us on our journey. I don't know, almost 10 years ago, maybe it could be. So that's basically what our company looks like now. We're a manufacturer of coffee. We have most of our distribution in the West Coast and the East Coast, and our goal is just to continue to grow, remain a family business, and just get our product into more hands and stomachs, and that's really our goal now. But the real question is, what is the mark that my generation's going to make? How do we make it our story now together as the 4th generation of Gaviñas and coffee?
Great, thank you. Heather, would you like to answer that as well?
Sure. You already know what we do, but you forgot. It's okay. Yeah. So, rocket science, we put people and stuff in space. Just figure that you're going to be good. So our business is not necessarily focused on that, though. At our heart, who we truly are a fair chance hire partner. So what does that absolutely mean? You probably have come across someone in your life that is facing a systemic barrier to getting a job. Maybe that person is experiencing homelessness, extreme poverty, addiction, experience in the criminal justice system. So what Thermal-Vac truly is about, and it started with my father, who has 32 years of sobriety. He came out of rehab for the second time, got sober when I was 8. So I knew both drunk dad and sober dad. And he started going to AA. He brought us with him. We sat in central office. I made the newcomer pamphlets. I went to all the damn spaghetti dinners. So tired of nuns feeding me spaghetti. But he would come out of these meetings. My mother's nodding. She's tired of spaghetti too. He would come out of these meetings and he would realize that he just met a guy that violated parole because he couldn't get a job. One of the conditions for him coming out and being released, he had to have a job, had to have a place to live. And that was just to stay out of jail. We don't realize that there are barriers placed to people getting jobs. We do experience a barrier, our literal sex. So when we look at others to include them in the workforce, that's where Thermal-Vac looked to differentiate. How can we bring as many people as possible facing systemic barriers into our family of liars, cheats, and thieves? We are the island of misfit toys. And my father passed that on. And that is the legacy that we look to perpetuate. I have 3 younger brothers. Yes. So being the only girl and the oldest, the natural instinct was for my father to pass his business to the eldest son. Male-dominated business, the amount of women business owners is far below 10% in our industry. So when we sat in a room and said, who's CEO, they all volunteered me. And I was like, wait, no. I'm more of a lead from behind kind of gal. And they said, yeah, that's why. And also, we don't like accounting, so it's going to be you. So that's the phase of the business that we're in now. My dad decided to peace out and literally leave the state because, politics. So he waved a fond farewell and said, "Love ya, bye." So we're picking up the pieces and trying to draw those connections that Lisette talked about. She has them in-house right in front of her, this tangible asset to ask every day. We're trying to figure out what the heck he was thinking 37 years ago and still make a go of it, because that transition is so critical. Over half of second-generation businesses fail. That's crazy.
Maronya, would you like to answer that?
Okay.
So talk about your role in your family business now and into the future.
Okay. Well, currently I'm Chief Operating Officer and General Counsel. Where our company is at, as I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of strategic growth, very aggressive growth over the next 18 months. And so part of that is building the team. So we are, looking for additional leadership to come in, to be mentored under, Martha, my mother, and one other woman, our executive vice president, and myself, so that the two of them, Martha, my mom, and our executive vice president, they want to rise to more of the advisory role. So the goal is for next year for me to step into the role as president, build the team of leaders to help, lead the business with me. As I mentioned, we do a lot of federal contracting, and then the other company does a lot of commercial cybersecurity. And so our goal is for the company to grow into different size standards. There's size standards within the government. We're continuing to grow there, expand our presence. Currently, we're in 15 states, expand our brand throughout other parts of the country and internationally as well. So that's kind of where we're looking for.
Okay, great.
So I work with my mom and my sister, and my role in the company is overseeing our strategic partnerships. I'm the younger sister. We're a big Italian family, so age and sex was big in our family. We grew up in a really male-dominated, patriarchal family in a tiny little house that was 3 girls. So my mom, my sister, and I. So we had this little girl house of we can do anything, but we also have a really strong understanding of what my grandpa said went, and everybody listened, and what his dad, and so there's a lot of balance, which actually when I first joined the company, I joined our international sales team, so I could crush it in certain areas of the world where other business women couldn't, because I got it, I understood it. They reminded me of my uncles. So there were some things from our past that really helps in us going into our international market. So currently we're in all 50 states and we're in 89 different countries. We work with teachers and classrooms and educators all over the world. In the past couple of years, what that looks like changed. So we're going where the kids are. So sometimes that's homeschool, sometimes that's charter schools, more private schools than it's ever been before in the United States, but we've been in private schools for a long time internationally. Where we want to go in the future and why we're doing what we're doing, we get to see classrooms. We're really fortunate. I wish I could take this cameraman and show the world the amazing things that happen in classrooms all of the time. I wish I could show on an average Tuesday how amazing a 3rd grade teacher is. Or there's a school in Clark County, Las Vegas, that the kids don't get a lot of love at home, so they bring all the love at school that every student should get to experience, but we don't get to hear that. So for us, getting to see that and getting to meet the needs of teachers and students all over the world is huge for us. Equity is huge for us. People having voices and seeing themselves represented in books and as authors are tremendously important to us. And the same with our staff. Finding people that will disagree with us is important. And we learn more from the folks that are disagreeing from us on how to meet the needs of students and teachers everywhere.
I think that helps you grow. Yeah. So 3 of the 4 of you are working for the previous generation, but all of you have been through a transition. What lessons did you learn in your leadership role as it expanded? Would you like to answer, Liz?
I think, was it Susan, you said it earlier, seek to understand has really been the mantra. And one thing that Joanne really shared with us early on was this idea of appreciative inquiry. especially when you're, dealing with somebody that an entrepreneur, right, that started their company. There's a lot of passion in the business. They have a lot of ownership over everything, the customers, the product, the carpet, in the building. I mean, they want to be a part of every single decision. So just, trying to listen more and show appreciation and ask questions and then form, an opinion and find a way, to get your vision, in place.
Okay. Maronya?
For me, I came out of working in law. And so I was at a big New York law firm where I lived my life in 6-minute increments. There wasn't much time to, chit-chat and kind of shoot the breeze and things like that. So when I came into the role as Chief Operating Officer for IMRI, how I grew up in the law firm, it didn't quite fit that culture, So, family business, so there's family members, but then there's non-family members, but yet the environment is still very, familiar. And so I had to learn that I need to be more flexible and adapt as a manager, as a leader. I need to be more flexible in that. And I think that was one of the biggest growth areas for me, to be able to be flexible while still driving results.
Great. And Deanne, I believe you were in that generation.
Oh man, I thought I knew everything. So I wasn't able to join the company. I grew up in the company. It started before I was born. So it was in our garage. I got to do every job. All my high school friends got employed over the summers. I got fired from finance in one day. I did collections. People told me why they didn't want to pay, and I'm like, that's okay, you don't have to pay. Our CFO was like, out, get out, stay out forever. So when I was graduating from college, I just assumed that I would come and work at the company, because if there was a business trip in New York, I'd go. And I'm like, oh, I'll go and see some musicals while I'm there, by the way. But I wasn't allowed to. And so my mom was like, no, you bring nothing to the table. And I was 22 and I knew everything. But she didn't think so, so I went and got a job. I actually worked in sales and marketing at Coca-Cola, which was amazing. It was like getting a master's degree in branding and mentorship. I came in right at the time they were settling class action lawsuits against women and minorities. So within 3 months, I got $6,000 bumps and raises. And it was tied to how long I'd been with the company. So 3 months, $6,000. I thought, what weren't you paying people? My goodness. And then I said, can I come and work for you now? Look at my sales results. I'm consistent. I'm a high performer. She said no. So I went and got an MBA. I learned everything about the department in finance that I got fired from. I still don't like it, but I understand it. And I said, can I come and work for you now? And she said no. So it wasn't until I taught at the university level, nowhere near the teaching experience to make any of our product, but I taught, that she said, okay, now you bring something to the team. And she matched our salaries my whole life. If I made it babysitting, she'd pay it for me at TCM. If I made it giving tours at my university, that's what she'd pay us. So she matched my salary from Coca-Cola, because it was higher than teaching. And I took an international sales territory. And I thought, again, I knew everything. So I came in, I said, you have to outsource. It's amazing. We can save so much money. We can get rid of that entire department, because I learned it in my classes in my master's department. And I still have a picture of Paul Revere, because we were outsourcing art. And Paul Revere was driving off in a Ford, and his son with like a surfer wave haircut and his Nike shoes was like, bye, Dad. And I was like, yeah, maybe outsourcing isn't quite as easy as they make it sound in a case study in a business class. So I think staying inquisitive is tremendously important. What I think I know going into a situation is most of the time not what a whole situation is. If I listen to just one perspective of an employee issue, I'm missing 2 other perspectives on the same instance. So I think staying curious, which I hope I do for my entire life, makes it so that we can be better at the products that we're serving with our customers and hopefully with our employees. Which is so hard to say with Yulia sitting in the room. I hope she agrees.
That's great. So when the time comes for you to transition to the next generation, how will you prepare the next generation to be more successful? Maronya, would you like to start?
Well, my personal next generation is only 2, so we have a while. But I do have my nephews and others, and so I think it's really getting them engaged early on. I think a lot of them, they're about to start the older nephews are about to start college. And I think it's through internships, understanding more, talking with them, explaining the legacy in which my mother, Martha, founded the company and where she wants it to go, and really bringing them in that way. But yeah, I have personally, with my child, I have some time, so we'll see where things are at then. That's quite a while from now. So,
Heather, do you have anything? I'm not sure. Do you have anything to say here?
I like how you left me out of the last one, though. It was great. It's strategic. I like it. As far as the transition's concerned, I think one of the biggest things that we have to remember is that we have been bestowed and blessed to be in the care and charge of other human beings. So at our core, our entire existence has to be centered around a human focus. And many times when we're transitioning or we're getting for that next career ladder step, we make it very self-intended, not selfish, but very self-oriented. So if you're transitioning into a family business, understanding that legacy is truly defined by the previous generation. So you have to understand, embrace, love, and perpetuate every single step, every tear, every sweat, every blood, divorce, remarriage, death, everything. It is in those four walls that are those businesses. So when you're going to take on a leadership role, it's about the same level of responsibility as President of the United States. You do not understand your true impact on every person that is exposed to you 8 hours a day. So that's one of the biggest lessons that I had to learn, was this awesome responsibility and ability to influence, protect, grow, encourage, and love every single person that got that paycheck every Friday.
Lisette?
When I think about the next generation, there are a lot of things that I wish would have happened, for me in the generation ahead. And I would say if you are in a first generation or second generation business, try to do all the hard work now, because it's so much harder at the cousins level. We're trying to create all of these processes. We've created a family council that manages the family. We have the operational management and then the board, and just trying to explain to people, well, what do all these bodies do? What does everybody do? So I think the more work you can do sooner, if you know you want your business to become a family business or continue to be a family business, it's better for everybody. And a big part of that is just setting up the expectations for, what does it mean to be a part of this family business, being a part of this legacy? Is this my bank account? Is it going to pay for my life, for my children's life? Or is it a lifestyle business? It's a privilege to be a part of this business. I think another really important thing in helping to train the next generation is teaching them how to make decisions together. Because for my parents' generation, their lives completely changed overnight. When the communist, regime came into power in Cuba, they had to flee Cuba, leave everything behind. They had to, really come together, start their lives over. And there was this incredible bond that they had to have in order to survive. So now in my generation, it's a little bit different. We're more comfortable, than they were when they first came over. And so I think that's the important thing, is how do you bring that next generation together? How do you continue to foster the bond of the family? Because you have to be intentional. You have to get together. You have to have parties. You have to, celebrate, encourage, love everybody regardless of what's going on. And the more you can encourage that next generation to even be able to make decisions together, business decisions together. Now, we haven't done this, but I've heard of other family businesses that they'll start an investment fund to teach entrepreneurship to the next generation, or having a family foundation where the next generation is making decisions together on where those funds are spent. And so those are all little decisions that will then help them be better business owners, entrepreneurs, and help them own and manage a business together. So educate the next generation.
So when did you first realize that you wanted to be in a leadership role in the family business? I know, Deanne, you knew right away, but they wouldn't let you.
Well, I would say we earned the leadership roles that we had in the business. It is strange, though, when somebody that you've known since you were 13 is somebody that you're now managing. So there's a shift that happens. So I would say we're very fortunate. My mom knows our strengths, our differences. My sister and I have absolutely no interest in the exact same things, which is great. I think we complement each other well because of that. And I have a mom who drove the transition where I don't think that's always the case. And I think a lot of times people are grabbing the batons and let me have it. My mom drove it. So we have some things that are a challenge. I think there's been room for us to fail. And I don't know if it's because there's a lot of women that work with us that we don't mind saying it. We don't make the same mistake twice. But when we make mistakes, we say we make mistakes, we own it. We try to get our culture where people can do the same thing as well. And then, so I've had leadership roles. I got divorced. I took a step back from some leadership roles, and then I've taken some back. So I think an advantage of a family business is those kind of changes that can happen. Nobody ever was like, no, don't leave right now because your kids need you. But the truth is, we do that with our own staff too. Right. If a school calls, we work with schools. We like it. When they call, the parent has to go. And so I think the transitions and figuring out what you're good at, having really great mentors in your family, but also outside of your family, has been great. And for me, having experience outside of the company gained a lot of confidence in as I took over leadership roles.
So that I could work, I was working to 5 o'clock in the morning so many times for a law firm, for a big law firm where I'm just a number, billing, all that. So if I could contribute my knowledge that I've gained through my working experience and to put that into our family business and to be able to help create jobs for people and to help, make other families successful, that was something I wanted to be a part of. That was something I was okay and happy to be able to work to 5 o'clock in the morning. The other point you made, like in the family business, IMRI was a very familiar culture, even for non-family members. So when things like happen with school or things like that, you let people go. People all are gonna, make it up on the back end, front end, wherever they need to, because you want people to be able to balance life. Life is more than just being in an office for 8, 10, 12, 15 hours in a day. There's so much more to it. And so it was very important for us to be able to balance, and have our employees be able to balance. It's been one of the greatest blessings for me because I do have the flexibility in that. I came into motherhood a little later. And so I do think that becoming a mother has allowed me to also be able to manage and understand different dynamics in a different way. And so I look back, it's been 12 years. I never would have imagined, but it has been truly, like I said, one of the greatest blessings of my life.
That's great. So, Heather, what did you do to prepare yourself to lead?
Well, in preschool, my teacher, Miss Olga, she used to let me stay up from nap time and help her. Yeah, I was that kid. Yeah, so from birth, I was so excited to be a part of anybody that was leading. I just wanted to be just this little fishy that swam along beside them. So as I mirrored the behaviors that I was exposed to, my teacher, Miss Olga, she is a Montessori preacher. Preacher? Wow. That was a Freudian slip because she was literally the spiritual center of my world for over a decade. That woman, I'll tell you what, she taught me piano, she taught me algebra, she taught me life. So I just picked up little pieces. And you get exposed. Being able to be a part of a family business, you don't have those normal summers. You're filing time cards, or you're helping accounts payable, or you're making copies, or you're giving coffee to your dad, or you're laying on the couch watching the TV built into his desk because that's the only time you saw them. So I always wanted to be there in the mix of things. One of my fondest memories of what I very early nebulously thought leadership was about, we were all in bed. And my dad got home. And the way we knew that my dad was home is we could hear the HBO 8 o'clock movie, and we could hear the popcorn popping. And I was like, yes, that's a man that's important. Look at his day. He comes home and he collapses on a couch and he can finally relax. I said, yes, what do I need to do from there? And then I cried every time I failed a test in school and called my mother and had to go home. So I had to learn a lot about loss and failure and how to build myself up from that. The type A perfectionism that lives in women and the overachieving necessity to constantly prove ourselves worthy, that's a thing you gotta naturally fight every single day. So I think that feeds into a lot of leadership skills as a just consequence of literally existing with a vagina. So embrace it, right? It ain't going away. So use it, build that leadership skills and take over and kick ass and take some names, right?
How do I follow, Heather?
I know.
This just isn't fair.
It's like, whoa.
You're amazing, you know that, right? Thank you for your
She makes it-
authenticity.
And she makes it very easy to be up here because she brings a lot of joy and excitement.
Oh, amazing, amazing. What was the question again?
How did you prepare yourself to become in this leadership role?
Okay, well, still in process. No, definitely. I mean, same as Heather. I mean, I grew up going to work with my dad. You know, it wasn't just summer vacation. It was winter break, Easter break, Veterans Day, because we're in manufacturing. We don't get any of the bank holidays off, so I'd just go to work with my dad. And I would work with my aunt and work with my uncle and pack coffee in the back, taste coffee in the cupping room. You know, I learned the whole entire business. So I grew up with a lot of passion for the business. And my family is very, very tight. We all grew up between, you know, La Cañada, Glendale, Pasadena. We're all very, very close together. And we, you know, holidays, Christmas, First Communions, you know, Easter, we were always together as a family. And I think that really helped, you know, us have this bond as a family, but also have a very strong sense of pride and knowing where we come from, who we are, where our ancestors came from, what we do in this world. You know, coffee is our passion. We bring happiness and joy and warmth and comfort to the world through our coffee. That's what we do. That's why we're here. We're a part of it. I mean, that's what drives us. And so just growing up knowing that's what we're a part of, I think being involved, you know, is a really important part with the next generation. You want to make sure that they go to school, they get an education, they work outside the business. I also worked outside the business. I went and I got my MBA. I worked for the company 5 years straight out of college, full time, and then I went and I got my MBA full time. I was going to go part time, but I had just gotten married, and I had concerns about, you know, being a newlywed and working and going to school. Like, how could I manage it all? So I went full time, and it was amazing because between your first and second year of business school, you have to do an internship. And I interviewed with all these companies, and I said, nobody's going to hire me. Nobody's going to value my family business experience. And I had internships from offers from Nestle, from Frito-Lay, from Procter & Gamble, you know, all these amazing multinational companies. I'm like, what do they see in me? But the whole experience just opened the doors for me to see, like, wow, I have value. There's a lot to learn. And so I interned with Procter & Gamble. I went back full time and worked with them for about 3 years. And then that's when I returned to my family business. My uncle was sick, and he said, you know, you should come back, you should help your dad. And but growing up in the business, having that connection to the business, but also investing in myself, it's something I still am doing every day. I just joined YPO LA, you know, and I'm in Vistage thanks to Heather. And all of this is a lot of time and investment, but the best investment you can always make is in yourself. So when the opportunity comes, you're ready. If not, the worst thing is when the next generation is they're just not prepared. And they need to take personal responsibility, but it's also, the parents' generation, I think, that needs to own it too.
Great. So each of you have at least one sibling or cousin in the leadership role. How is it working with a sibling or another family member, and what are some of the challenges? Would you like to take that one?
So I think working in a family business, the difference, I would say, the big difference is nobody in my life knew that under the surface there could be chaos. But if you grow up sharing a bathroom with the person you work with, they know the final product looks good, but they also know that under your desk there's a pile of papers. So I think there's some adjustment in how much people can see you that in most other business, anywhere else in my life, teachers didn't see it, bosses didn't see it. So I think there's a authentic that you can't hide from, but that you also have to understand you're not your 13-year-old self as well. So I would say most of the time with my sister, it works really well. Like I will be driving home from work and we'll be on the phone with each other and I'm like, okay, sister hat. Oh, my boss is driving me crazy. And then I'll vent like you would to a sister. And I'm like, all right, back to we're working together hats. And we'll do that. So we'll switch back and forth with that kind of stuff just to like, okay, don't take this and solve this at work, but I'm going to tell you something that I just think is interesting. So we have to be really clear on that part of it. And then full disclosure, like it's not perfect. So we meet on Tuesdays so that we can all three of us be on the same page, so we don't contradict each other around the office because people think that's really interesting. Like, oh, don't they talk? So we try to meet on Tuesdays, and twice since I've been there, and I joined the company full-time in 2004, we've gotten in really big, quiet whisper fights. I mean, big like we're teenagers, but whispering. So, and both times really it didn't have anything to do with the company or what we were fighting about. Like one day, it was right before my mom had surgery. Like there were some things that were like bubbling, but like we really did turn into like kids. Like she walked away and I wanted to run after her in the hall and jump on her back. I did. And I was like, don't do that. Don't do that. So, we're real, but I'll say that even around the office because people are like, oh, don't you ever fight? And I'm like, yeah, of course. We're a big Italian family. We say what we think. We move on quickly. So that part is nice. We don't let things stay on us for very long. We say what's bothering us, what's not. We disagree vehemently with each other privately. And then when we're talking to our employees, but we want that with our leadership team too. We want us all to disagree. We think we come out with better conclusions when that happens. But then when we're talking to our teams, we want us to be on the same page.
Very consistent. Mm-hmm. Marie, what about you? What are the challenges you face?
So I think one of the biggest things is when you have multiple family members in the business is to, whether they're in leadership or not leadership, is to value their contribution at all levels. One of our biggest challenges from the 12 years I've been there, whether it's with family members, siblings, cousins, or even with my mother, is learning when to turn work off. It is so difficult because there is you can talk about work 24/7 a day and still have more things to talk about. And so I remember at Thanksgiving dinners, sitting there, my mother and I and my brother, and we're talking work and family's getting annoyed. Things are getting a little heated because we're talking about something we disagree about. And over the years, we really had to make a conscious effort that at family events, at certain times in the evening, that we turn it off. Because those are things that can destroy a family business. If everything's on work, you don't get to have the relationship and the personal time that you had previously. I used to be able to call up my mom from the firm and complain about whatever partner at the time that was making me mad. I can't call and complain about her in that way. So it's just different. It's a different dynamic. And so I've had to shift. The other thing in that shifting is that we have to call and similarly say, okay, I'm calling to speak to my mom right now, or I'm calling to speak to my brother right now, because it's so easy for this conversation to start without, introducing that introduction. Like, you're my mom right now, not my boss. that the conversation can turn quickly otherwise. So that's where I think it's important to be able to kind of divide those lines, have time where you go to lunch, go to dinner, go to movies, go on vacation. I just went on vacation with my mom in July. It was great. We didn't really talk much about work, which is rare, very rare. And so those are the moments that you can't get back. You don't want to lose sight of the family bond while trying to, run a company together. So that's my biggest advice.
That's great advice. I think separating family from the business really helps, and having that first, you're my mom today, right now. So that's important. Heather?
I had the luxury of spending a quarter of my career working for a non-family president. His best advice to me was, Heather, remember that you are always on stage. And they look at you, and there is already an expectation of your decorum, your behavior, your leadership. So for the days that you don't want to be in charge and you're fighting with your siblings, there are eyes watching you. So the biggest thing that I remember having trouble with my siblings is being private. We did not whisper fight. We just let it fly across the office, and mom had to come and tell us to go in our offices, and it was a painful time. It really was. Yeah, but she's guilty too, because I got transferred a call the other day, and it was the legislative administrative director for NASA, and he says, "Oh, hey, I was just talking with your mom." Yeah, so that was fun, because I'm supposed to be important, Mom. You can't tell him about my high school water polo when we're talking about the space launch. So the lessons that we learned very quickly is temper our temper. Remember, we are on stage, there are always eyes, and that every decision that we make has to be in the greater good. So no matter what our selfish intent, no matter if the dollar goes in our pocket or not, we are ultimately responsible for lives. The ability for someone to feed their child at night, and that makes it look through a whole lens of responsibility and gets rid of a lot of the childish kind of garbage. I mean, you're still going to be vulnerable. The 12-year-old me comes out. It happens, right? I can't picture Lisette having a 12-year-old me come out, because is this woman not the epitome of class and grace? Gorgeousness. Her dress is coffee themed. I cannot. Caramel macchiato dress. This woman's brand is on point. She is taking appointments. I am her PR person. We're going to hook you up after the session.
I love you, Heather.
So what I'd like to do is we'll start with you, Lisette, and let's talk about your mentors or the leaders who have molded you into what you've become as a woman leader.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the greatest mentors of my life are my parents. I always saw, my mother was at home with my sister and my dad always working, 7 days a week, especially as they were starting the business, and with my uncles and my aunt and my grandparents too. And so that really instilled in me a work ethic and wanting to work hard to do something, to be somebody in this world. And so I just love them and admire them so much. And for a long time, I would say, oh, it's my dad, it's my dad, it's my dad, because of the work ethic part. But as I get older, I'm like, wow, it's really my mom, because she's so thoughtful in so many ways. She's always been there for me and my sister and everything that we've ever needed. And I don't know, she just continues to amaze me. She's so spiritual and nurturing and smart and educated. And so I think I'm really a blend of them. So that's where the classy part comes from her. But those have been important mentors. And the bosses that I've had, outside of the company especially. I had a boss, she worked at P&G in Korea for 10 years before she came to North America. And she was used to working from, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. every night. And I'm like, I have to go home. I have to drive an hour to Pasadena from the Valley. And but she was amazing. She really saw potential in me. She told me later on, she's like, I wasn't sure if you were going to make it, past your 90 days. But she really, was there for me. She taught me. She was patient. She spent a lot of time with me, and I really appreciate for that and love her very much to this day. Now she's back in Asia rocking the Olay. I think she manages Olay for all of Asia. Yeah, she's amazing. So, but even to this day, I just meet different people. Like, I've been kind of on a personal journey over the last few years. I know we've all been through a lot with the pandemic, and I gained so much weight over the pandemic. I was actually weighing more than when I was pregnant with my son. You couldn't really tell from the Zoom. Yeah, but I gained a lot of weight and I was not feeling great. I was just on this downward spiral. I'm like, I'm not myself. And so I found a coach, a health coach that just helped put a plan together for me, and I lost 55 pounds. I've been able to keep the weight off since November. Thank you. But it was this redirecting my energy to the whole person, waking up for me and what I need that day, not, oh my God, what is coming at me today? So anyway, finding people that can help you in specific areas of your life, Kobe Bryant. How many coaches did Kobe have? Michael Jordan. Nobody, is an all-star, is born an all-star athlete. So find those mentors, find the coaches that can help you achieve your dreams and your objectives.
Okay, Heather?
I brought them with me. So 2 of my mentors that steer me every single day. First, my mother, the queen of taking care of people. This woman was a Catholic school secretary. You go see Miss Cheryl, she's gonna hook you up with the lollipop, she's gonna take your temperature, she's gonna make sure you get an orange, you get to lay down, and you get to miss PE. So, and she also forgot to place limits on me at all. So I grew up with this perpetual idea that I could just do whatever the heck I wanted all the time. And she was just there oh, you want to try a sport that's not a woman's team in your school? Cool. When's the practice? So I started playing men's water polo. Oh, you want to play softball for a Division I, blah, blah, blah? Yeah, okay. When's practice? So when you have a mother like that, it's almost impossible not to make something of yourself just out of sheer fear of disappointing the woman. The shame. My mother is the epitome of meeting people where they are. She taught me to care intrinsically from the soul, how to feed people from your soul, how to give to where it matters, listening, understanding, validating. Don't cry. Oh. And then Lisa's gonna cry too, because that's who we are. She's already crying. So I pick my mentors in packs, you can tell. So Lisa has opened my giving heart. Before I knew Lisa, I did not understand philanthropy. The word is very nebulous. It's out there. It's a bunch of money. It's a bunch of old people buying silent auction items, whatever. That's what I figured philanthropy was, Warren Buffett, what's his next thing? But no, when you find a mentor that comes from a giving heart, that is pure and unbiased and giving and accepting, they can teach you to bring that into your own heart. I don't know what to do with you two. So when you're seeking out a mentor, try not to look for your type. Try to find someone you really don't like. Or they said something to you about yourself that you want to defend. No, that's not me. No, I'm not like that. No, what? No, this 360 is wrong. It was hard. So seek out the women and men in your life that can open your caring heart, that can teach you to grow and expand and live your authentic life every single day. And that might not be the person that you expect. And allow yourself to be open and run into that person literally sitting right next to you right now.
So Maronya, you want to follow that?
So my 2 mentors are the 2 matriarchs of my family, my grandmother and my mother. So my grandmother grew up as a sharecropper in Mississippi until the age of 18. So she was not able to go to school. She did not have an elementary, a junior high, a high school education. She was the oldest of 5 children, and so it was her job to be out in the fields doing sharecropping. At 9, she took me there. I stood before the fields that she sharecropped, and I got to see what her life was like. But even though my grandmother never got to get an education, my grandmother felt that education was so key and so important. She went back to school. She took night classes, even in her 60s and 70s. She ended up in, I think at 80, getting her GED. But she instilled the value of education into my mother. So my mother, she wanted my mother to be involved in everything that she could be because she wanted her child to be able to experience something that she couldn't. So she would sew all not the costumes, but all the choir robes for the choir that my mom would be in. She would do everything she could to allow my mother to be able to experience and be able to achieve her highest achievements. So the value of education started with my grandmother. My mother became the first in her family to get her MBA. Education she learned from my grandmother was key. And so for me, that led me to want to always, continue to grow, to always get an education. And so that's part of the reason why I went and got my Juris Doctorate. I wanted to make sure that I could continue the legacy of increasing education within my family. My mother is just everything. So I grew up with a mother who, down in the South, she marched with Martin Luther King at a time where, she was told as a little girl, she would see the lines and what she could and couldn't do because of her race. She was told, as a kid, she knew at a young age she was going to become president. She didn't know president of what, but she knew she was going to become president. Okay, so she was going to become president when others were trying to pigeonhole her into, the best she'll do is be a secretary, okay? Nothing wrong with being a secretary, but she wanted to be president. So she went into the military, she found ways around things, got skills, got the MBA, and then was in a field in the 80s where there weren't many women in IT. And so I grew up with a mom who never took no for an answer. No means find another way to make it happen. That's one of the best lessons that I've learned from my mentor is find another way to make it happen. If you don't win that contract, you go after another. You find your network. You use your network to build those relationships to help you. So those are the 2 women who just made me very strong in who I am and mentored me. And so it's just great. I have other mentors, but those 2 are them. The legacy that they've left. One of the greatest moments was when I did graduate from law school. I got to have my grandmother there I think she was 86 at the time, and I got to look at her and just say, wow, Grandma, look how far we came from the fields of Mississippi. So it was a very special moment.
That's sweet.
So I think I think my grandpa was a businessman. He didn't graduate from high school, but then had gone back to do it and never stopped asking questions. And that's where my mom got her ability to ask questions. But like you, as I got older, I realized from my grandma is where my mom got her ability to understand people and their stories and why people's stories are important. But my family was great at always allowing us to try anything, and they were so proud of you for trying, even if you didn't get it. Like, they were like, that's amazing. So you had this confidence going in to do some of the most, in hindsight, ridiculous things. But they were just so proud of you for trying. And I can always remember even a great auntie would say, just think of all the people that didn't even try. Like, who cares if you came in last? Think of all the people that never tried, that didn't even get to that point. So I think that mentality, I use it a lot as a parent. And then in my professional life, my mom told me very young to always work like somebody was paying me $100,000. She says, work for free. If you're gonna learn, just work like you're getting paid 6 figures. And so I would take different jobs and different opportunities, and I got to meet amazing people. So I went to USC, and I was a tour guide there. Sounds like just a regular college job, but the woman that hired us hired people from every aspect of the university, people I would have never met. So her ability to represent this entire university through maybe 13 people are still to this day some of my very best friends. And she's still an amazing person who puts together teams. I meet other people who've worked with her. She's in charge of admissions and she does all kinds of other things, but she can really pull together people you would never think should work together, and amazing things come from it. I also had an opportunity to work in the mayor's office in Los Angeles. Love politics. I know I shouldn't, but I do. So I got to work, and I worked writing speeches for the mayor of LA at that time. And the woman that I worked with, her name's Noelia Rodriguez. She was the deputy mayor for communication. I've never worked so hard in my life hoping not to disappoint her. Not because she ever would say she was disappointed. There was just this elevation of, I want to impress you so much. And she took me to different jobs. I got to work for the host committee for the Democratic National Convention when it was in Los Angeles. She went on to be Laura Bush's press secretary. I got to take my mom and grandma to the White House to like behind the scenes, which my mom has taken me so many places in my life. I've gotten to see the world. I was in Japan when I was 3. I wandered Australia's streets when I was 13. Like, she's taken me, I got to sit at a dinner with the CEO of Time Warner. Like, I've met such interesting people. To flip it and get to go, like, sit at the Oval Office. I don't know if we were supposed to, but, like, sit at Laura Bush's. And she's like, go into the bathroom, steal some towels. I'm like, I don't think I'm supposed to, but I'm going to. So, but I really think, like, even knowing to work so hard for her really came from my mom. So I think looking at these different skills and the different people that you can meet and learn from and grow from, I think is really important. But today, I would tell you, I think somebody said it, it's hard to be a business owner, to be a woman, to be a mom, to be a friend. It's hard to do all the different people. So I also think today, finding mentors that we can lean on, like my Katie and Jenny, where are so finding different people with similar places in your life is important, so that you can say the terrible things. You have somebody you can complain about your mom to, because they work with their family too. Like, and we know that we all work together, and like, so we have an internal like pinky promise. We're sending our kids to each other's companies so they can get fired there, so that the whole company doesn't say like, oh, they got fired from that department. So we're sending our teenagers and ours to everybody. So like, there's 4 of us that meet. Well, we try to meet once a quarter. So we'll like, here, go get fired over there. Go see Mackenzie.
Go try that.
Yeah, they'll fire you for being late. I can't get you to school on time.
Well, I want to thank all 4 of you. You guys gave us some great insight on what you guys do, your mentors, which obviously there's a lot of connection with the family, with mentors too. And I think, Ellen, you guys can have a seat. And I think